Greetings, and welcome to Diagon Alley, here for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 5, titled Diagon Alley. This is the commentated reading, so this is not for those who have not read the books before. This is for those who are wanting a bit more discussion and humor in their reading. Yes, there's a lot of sarcasm in my commentated readings. Such as the Dursleys wanting Harry to become an Obscurial. Obviously, the Dursleys have no idea what an Obscurial is, and I don't even know if J.K. Rowling knew what an Obscurial was when she was writing these first few chapters. So, it's all in good fun. That's what this commentation is. It's a humorous reading of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Chapter 5, Diagon Alley. Harry woke early the next morning. How early, we don't know. Although he could tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes tight shut, so it could be 5 a.m. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to a school for wizards. This is a good dream. When I open my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard, at a place of depression. It was just a dream, Harry. Just a dream. It's a great imagination. Just be sure to not tell Uncle Vernon about this dream. Because if he didn't like motorbikes flying in that other dream, he ain't gonna like you being called a wizard in this dream. Right? There was suddenly a loud tapping noise. And there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door. Harry thought, his heart sinking. But he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. Seriously good dream. Tap, tap, tap. All right, Harry mumbled, getting up. He sat up, and Hagrid's heavy coat fell away from him. Because it wasn't just a dream. Not just a dream. It was real, Harry. You are a wizard. The hut was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the completely collapsed and flattened like a pancake sofa. And there was an owl, rapping its claw on the window, with a newspaper held in its beak. Because somehow an owl is able to hold a newspaper in its beak. Owls are not snakes. They can't just dislocate their jaw and grab onto very large things. And most newspapers are rather thick. Harry scrambled to his feet, so happy he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. Because it wasn't just a dream. It was real. It was real. He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. Because Hagrid is a heavy sleeper, and this owl just knows what to do. He has delivered newspapers to Hagrid several times before. The owl then fluttered onto the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coat. Because, as I said, the owl has done this before. And this owl was probably not very happy that Hagrid was in a hut on the rocks, on the sea. It's much, much more difficult journey for this owl than it is used to. Because, as I said, this owl is used to delivering newspapers to Hagrid, and probably when Hagrid is still asleep. So this owl knows its way around Hagrid's coat. Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on savaging the coat. It needs to be paid, and it knows how to get paid. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, there's an owl. Pay him. Hagrid grunted into the sofa. What? He wants paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pockets. Hagrid's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets. Bunches of keys, slug pellets, because Hagrid had already been to Nocturne Alley. That's book 2. Balls of string for the cats that Hagrid does not like and is allergic to. And peppermint humbugs and tea bags. Tea bags that he didn't need to ask the Dursleys for. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coins. Give him 5 knuts, said Hagrid sleepily. Knuts? The little bronze ones. Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins. And the owl held out his leg so Harry could put the money into a small leather pouch tied to it. A bag of holding, no less, or a pouch of holding. Because that's the only way an owl's going to be able to carry that much coinage. Of course, if he's only got to deliver 1 paper, maybe 1 paper per owl. That could, that's a lot of owls. Wow. That's a whole huge ton of owls. If it's 1 newspaper per owl from 1 address, each person gets their own owl delivering a newspaper to them. That's a personalized service. That just shows that the Daily Prophet cares about their customers. They want personal service to each of their customers. Then the owl, he flew off through the open window. Hagrid yawned loudly, sat up, and stretched, crushing the sofa even further. Best be off, Harry. Lots to do today. Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff for school. Harry was turning over the wizard coins and looking at them. He had just thought of something that made him feel as though the happy balloon inside him had got a puncture. Oh, Hagrid, said Hagrid. Yes, because is a saying, not a whatever, not a noised. Yes. Noised Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. Size 18 or size 24 boots, right? You know what they say about men with big boots, big feet, and big socks. I haven't got any money. You heard Uncle Vernon last night, even though he's in the next room. He won't pay for me to go and learn magic, so I can't just knock on the room to the next door here and say, hey, Uncle Vernon, can I have some money? Can I have some pocket money to buy a wand? No, you can't have those things. I'm not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach you magic tricks. Never insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. But I will. And one of my best friends will definitely insult Albus Dumbledore, because Albus Dumbledore deserves some insult, as we'll get to much later. Don't worry about that, said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head. Do you think your parents didn't leave you anything? But if their house was destroyed... They didn't keep their gold in their house, boy! Hagrid's finally had enough of Harry's stupidity. Nah, first stop for us is Gringotts. Wizard's Bank. Have a sausage. They're not bad cold. Cold meat. That is, or room temperature meat. At that. And I wouldn't say no to some of your, a bit of birthday cake either. Harry's first birthday cake. I forgot to mention that in the last chapter. The first time, probably, Harry has had a birthday cake. Well, maybe the second time, because I'm sure James and Lily gave Harry a 1 year birthday cake. Wizards have banks? Just the one. Gringotts, run by goblins. Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins? Yeah, so you'd be mad to try and rob it. I'll tell you that. As we'll see, they are definitely mad. Mad, mad, mad. It's a mad, 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 mad world. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Gringotts is the safest place in the world for anything you want kept safe. Except maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, I gotta visit Gringotts anyway for some Dumbledore Hogwarts business. You know, yeah, Hogwarts is the safest place for anything you want kept safe. Except your kids. Your kids ain't safe at Hogwarts. Hagrid drew himself out proudly. He usually gets me to do important stuff for him, fetching you, getting things from Gringotts. Knows he can trust me, see? Like, fetching you from a blown-up house. Got everything? Come on, then. Gotta watch that. Gotta watch that southern accent there. Oh, can't be giving all these British people this southern accent. You don't want no Southern American or Southern USA accent for all these Brits. You know, no Confederates here. Nope, nope, nope. Harry followed Hagrid out onto the rock. The sky was quite clear now, and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. A beautiful scene. The boat Uncle Vernon had hired was still there. It hadn't broken loose and floated away in the storm. That's good. With a lot of water in the bottom after the storm. So it's a little bit damp. Might think. How did you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat. Flew, said Hagrid. Hagrid flew? Like Voldemort can fly? Because brooms and thestrals don't hold Hagrid. He says that later. So how did Hagrid fly there? Not on a broom, not on a thestral. Flew? Yeah, but we'll go back in this. Not supposed to use magic now I've got you. So Hagrid has the magical ability to fly. Let's dwell on that for a moment. Did Snape teach Hagrid how to fly? Is Voldemort taught Snape how to fly, apparently? Learned a few tricks from his master. Oh, sliding from a Hagrid voice into a McGonagall voice? What line? Yeesh. But anyways. They settled down in the boat. The wet boat. Their feet got soaked. Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying. Which is what I'm trying to do. Because how the heck did Hagrid fly? Yeah. Based on everything else, there should be no way Hagrid can fly. Why didn't he just say apparate? Or had J.K. not discovered apparition yet? That's probably it. That's gotta be it. But, no, it can't be because Dumbledore apparated in and out of Privet Drive. So, why did Hagrid have to fly? Or Portkey. Why couldn't Hagrid Portkey? Probably because J.K. hadn't thought of a Portkey yet. That's more likely. Seems a shame to row, though, said Hagrid, giving Harry another of his sideways looks. If I was to, speed things up a bit, Would you mind not mentioning it at Hogwarts? Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out the pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off towards land, leaving the Dursleys behind. Leaving Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley on the rock, in the hut on the rock, on the sea, with no means of returning to shore. Without the old man, who Vernon got the boat from, rowing out to get them. And how is he going to know that they're still there when his boat is back? So the Dursleys were probably out on that rock, on that island, for a long time. Dudley missed several TV programs that he wanted to watch. I'm sure he was irate, and I'm sure the Dursleys were irate that Harry left them, took the boat, leaving them behind with no means to get back to shore. Cruel, Hagrid. That was really, really cruel and thoughtless. Of course, we know Hagrid is thoughtless. That comes up later. Why would you be mad to try and rob Gringotts? Harry asked. Spells! Enchantments, said Hagrid, unfolding his newspaper as he spoke. They say there's dragons guarding the high security vaults. And then you gotta find your way out. You gotta find your way. Gringotts is hundreds of miles under London, see? Hundreds of miles. The Earth's crust at its thickest is 43.5 miles. So for Gringotts vaults to be hundreds of miles deep, they're in the mantle. So you're surrounded by magma. Hot magma. As Dr. Evil Michael Myers would say. Magma. Yeah, those vaults are... ain't nobody. You don't need a dragon when your vaults are surrounded by magma. When your vaults are in the mantle of the earth. No. Sorry, JK. You screwed up again. Deep under the underground. Yeah, deep. Too deep. Way, way too deep. Deeper than it's possible to be. Even with magic. That'd be some darned impressive magic to get through, to protect the vaults from the mantle, from the molten rock. No. You die of hunger trying to get out. You die from the heat. Even if you manage to get your hands on some. Harry sat and thought about this. Thought about the impossibility of vaults being hundreds of miles below the Earth's crust. While Hagrid read his newspaper, the Daily Prophet, Harry had learned from Uncle Vernon that people liked to be left alone while they did this. But it was very difficult. He'd never had so many questions in his life, like how the vaults survive and how anyone manages to get hundreds of miles deep into the earth. I mean, I understand if the caves extend hundreds of miles, if the passageways extend hundreds of miles, all beneath London and beneath the underground. But no, you worded it wrong, JK. You worded it wrong. physically, geographically, geologically impossible. No. You did so much other research, like discovering Nicholas Flamel, being a real person and having a real historical figure in this book and basing the entire book around this real historical magical figure. But you couldn't get the thickness of the Earth's crust. Oy. Yes. This is something a flaw that I am very, very passionate about. There are others that we will get just as in-depth on. Oh yes. But those come much later. Book 5. Yeah, a little bit of 5 maybe. Mostly 6. Yeah, it's in 6 where I start getting into. Yeah. We'll get to that in book 6. Remus and Tonks. Ministry of Magic messing things up as usual. Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a Ministry of Magic? Harry asked before he could stop himself. Of course, said Hagrid. They wanted Dumbledore for minister, of course, but he'd never leave Hogwarts. So old Cornelius Fudge got the job. Ugh. Blunt butcher. Bungler if ever there was one. Yeah. So he pelts Dumbledore with owls every morning, asking for advice. But what does a Ministry of Magic do? Well, their main job is to keep it from the Muggles that there's still witches and wizards up and down the country. Why? Why? Blimey, Harry. Everyone would be wanting magical solutions to their problems. Now, we're better left alone. Best left alone. Yeah. And plus all the Muggles trying to kill witches and wizards just for religious reasons, because must put to death any witches or wizards. Somewhere in the Bible it says that, right? But there's a lot of magic in the Bible. That's some good stuff. There's some impressive, rather impressive magic in the Bible. Just because something's got magic in it and you're a Christian, I mean, just because fiction has magic in it, doesn't mean you as a Christian should throw it away, because our book has magic in it too. And not too far off from this kind of magic. Not far off indeed. At this moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbor wall. Hagrid folded up his newspaper, and they clambered up the stone steps onto the street, leaving the boat on the harbor wall, far, far away from the Dursleys. Passers-by stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town to the station. Is Hagrid so flippin' huge? Harry couldn't blame them, because Hagrid is so flippin' huge. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as anyone else, he kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things, like parking meters, and saying loudly, "See that, Harry? Things these Muggles dream up, eh? In order to make money for the city, and take advantage of people's needs to just get by, and to exist and do things. Gotta nickel and dime people, because capitalism. Yeah. Hagrid, said Harry, panting a bit as he ran to keep up. Did you say there are dragons at Gringotts? Well, so they say, said Hagrid. Crikey, I'd like a dragon. You'd like one. Wanted one ever since I was a kid. Here we go. Of course. I mean, I wouldn't mind a luck dragon myself. To have a luck dragon as a pet or companion would be amazing. I don't know about any other kind of dragon, but a luck dragon, never-ending story. Falcor! They had reached the station. There was a train to London in 5 minutes' time. Perfect timing for their arrival. Unless there are many trains to London. Every 20 minutes there's a train to London. Probably not. So, good timing. Well done. Glad you didn't miss it, Hagrid. Might have had to wait a whole 24 hours at the station. Hagrid, who didn't understand Muggle money, as he called it, gave the bills to Harry so he could buy their tickets. Yeah, couldn't read numbers? I mean, I'm pretty sure British currency has the value on it. In fact, later it says so. I mean, somehow Arthur Weasley can't read numbers. Why can't these wizards read numbers? Didn't they take arithmancy? A little bit of numerology? There's numbers in magic. Potions has lots of numbers. You should know numbers. Silliness of JK. JK trying to be funny and just being kind of ridiculous. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. So, okay. Bigger than a blanket. Why? Still got your letter, Harry? He asked as he counted stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. Good, said Hagrid. There's a list of everything you need. It would have been really bad if Harry had have lost the letter already. Though, of course, would have been pretty funny, too. Could have been a interesting plot point for Harry, always forgetting his important things. But no, that's Neville's job. That's Neville's character. Harry unfolded a second piece of parchment he hadn't noticed the night before and read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First-year students will require 1. 3 sets of plain work robes, black. Just 3 pairs of clothes for 5 days a week. Just 3 pairs of clothes. So the elves are washing clothes quite frequently. 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear, because that's worn all the time. Always wearing their black pointed hats that we never see in the movies. Except for the end of the year feast when they just throw their hats in the air. Pretty much the only time they're wearing their hats. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. Do they mean from a real dragon? Of course they do. Well, they don't mean a penguin now, do they? Crikey, I'd like a dragon. You'd like a dragon. The movie. The movie gets it all wrong. Number 4. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fascinates. Just 1. That's all you need. Don't worry if it gets wet or frozen one day. It'll dry out. Clean up. It'll be fine. Just scourgify it. Please note that all people's clothes should carry name tags. Of course, books. All students should have a copy of each of the following. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot. Rest her soul, eventually. Magical Theory by Adalbert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Phileta Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trumbull. Other equipment: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, 1 set of glass crystal files, 1 telescope, 1 set brass scale. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. Can we buy all this in London? Harry wondered aloud. If you know where to go, said Hagrid. If you know where to go. Always. Even not in the magical world. You gotta know where to go if you want to buy something. Harry had never been to London before. Really? Is the zoo not in London? Where's the zoo? Where's the zoo that Harry went to? Although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going, he was obviously not used to getting there in an ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground. Because he's twice as tall as a normal man. 4 times as wide. I don't know. That's Vernon. But Hagrid ain't no slouch. He's a big boy. And complained loudly that the seats were too small, because Hagrid is a big boy. And the train's too slow. Like the Hogwarts Express is any faster? Probably not. I don't know how the Muggles manage without magic, he said as they climbed a broken down escalator that led up to a bustling road lined with shops. So he's talking about Muggles in public, where they're surrounded by Muggles. He's talking about Muggles getting along without magic. Statute of Secrecy, Hagrid. Come on. Hagrid was actually, Dumbledore, Statute of Secrecy. Come on. You send Hagrid? The giant? I'm sure Minerva might have been struggled a bit more against Vernon, or maybe not. She might have even been quicker to put Vernon in his place. Because Minerva's no slouch. She is a tough woman, and that's why Maggie Smith was perfect to play her. But, if McGonagall would not have drawn attention, would not have stood out to the Muggles. Flitwick would have been awkward. Depending on the Flitwick. Book 1 Flitwick, with his crazy hair. Yeah. Where he's almost goblin, rather than just short. But let's see. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. Everybody move! Wasn't even necessary to be said, because Hagrid is bigger than Andre the Giant. All Harry had to do was to keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants, and cinemas. I wonder if it's the same hamburger restaurant. Probably. Get a little preview. Ooh, hey, I bet you forgot that there was a hamburger restaurant. But nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand, because you're on Muggle streets. This was just an ordinary street, filled with ordinary people. Or full of ordinary people. Though this is a commentated reading, I will try to read the words accurately when I'm actually reading them between commentations. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Probably not miles. Probably just a few hundred meters. And that would still be a lot. Were there really shops that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. But the Dursleys have no sense of humor and don't believe in imagination, and would never do anything to be this kind to Harry, to give him this kind of joy, even if they are going to take it away as a joke. To give him this. No. They would have done it for Dudley, maybe. But no. Come on, Harry. Think, think, think. Think, 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 think. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. Trust the stranger. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny... it's a famous place probably because it's the only place, and the only way to get into Diagon Alley from the Muggle world. And people stay there. It's a hotel. An inn. It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookstore on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. Because perception filters. Have a perception filter and your eyes just slide from one side over to the other, without seeing anything between. If you look at it, your eyes just move. Move away. Perception filters. Doctor Who! WRD. DRW. I am the Doctor. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby, because fame denotes wealth and glitz. Only something glittery can be famous. At least in the Muggle world, we would think. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old bartender, who was quite bald and looked like a toothless walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the bartender reached for a glass, saying, "The usual, Hagrid." Because Hagrid comes in often to drink, because we all know Hagrid is well, I wouldn't necessarily call him an alcoholic or a drunk. He's not really either, but he does like to drink. And that's okay. He drinks responsibly. But also, Hagrid has been at Hogwarts for 50 years. 53 years Hagrid was at Hogwarts. So that should be just about quite a few people were at Hogwarts knowing Hagrid at Hogwarts. So, all these people in the bar right now probably went to school when Hagrid was gamekeeper. They were there too. They all know Hagrid. Who knows how many of them actually visited him? Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business. Not official Hogwarts business, just Hogwarts business, said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle, as they always do, because Hagrid's hands weigh so much. Good Lord, said the bartender, peering at Harry. Can this be? The leaky cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. Bless my soul, whispered the old bartender. Harry Potter! What an honor! He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed toward Harry, and seized him by the hand, tears in his eyes. Welcome back, Mr. Potter. Welcome back. Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the leaky cauldron. Doris Crawford, Mr. Potter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter. I'm just so proud. Always wanted to shake your hand. I'm all aflutter. Delighted, Mr. Potter. Just can't tell you. Diggle's the name. Daedalus Diggle. I've seen you before, said Harry as Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in excitement. You bowed to me in a shop. You bowed to me once in a shop. He remembers, cried Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone. Did you hear that? He remembers me. Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crawford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward, very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching. Professor Quirrell, said Hagrid. Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts. Potter, stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. How is Quirrell touching Harry now, right now? How is he able to touch Harry? Oops. Tell you, please, I am to meet you. What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell? Defense against the dark arts, muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need it, eh, Potter? He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to... Obviously, Harry's getting all his equipment. That's why he's here. I've got to pick up a few books on vampires myself. Why are you telling? Okay. Not exactly sure why you're giving this information, Quirrell. What's Quirrell's full name? Huh. That's a question. What is Professor Quirrell's full name? But the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble. Must get on. Lots to buy. Come on, Harry. Doris Crawford shook Harry's hand one last time. and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small, walled courtyard, where there was nothing but a trash can and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. "Told ya, didn't I? Told ya you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet ya. Mind you, he's usually trembling." "Really? He's always been trembling?" "But you said he used to be normal." "Actually, last school year he was normal. He was not trembling before summer break. He comes back from summer vacation. Or, no, he took a full year off. So a year and a half ago, year and a quarter ago, Quirrell was not trembling. And you didn't see him for a year, so you've probably only known Quirrell to be back for the last maybe few weeks, maybe 2 months at most, that Quirrell's been back in the country." "Is he always that nervous?" "Oh, yeah. Poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest." "No, he meant worse. Far, far worse than vampires. And there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag." "Ah, I wonder if Lockhart was there. Help him out. Help him out with the hag." "Never been the same since." "Yeah, because it was the hag and vampires." "No, so much worse. Oh, so much worse. Scared of the students. Scared of his own subject." Yeah. But again, he's only been back for at most 2 months. So, okay. Right. Vampires? Oh, wait. Now, where's me umbrella? That you should be basically holding the whole time. Or you put it in a pocket and you forget which pocket you put it in. Because Hagrid's coat is made of pockets of holding. A coat of many pockets. Dungeons and Dragons. 3.5, and I'm not sure if it is 3.0 or 3.5. 3X. Not sure if that carried over to 4 and 5. Never played much of 4. Haven't. I don't know. Either ways, that's not what we're discussing right now. Vampires, hags, Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks on the wall above the trash can. 3 up, 2 across, muttered Bright. "Stand back, Harry." "Here it comes." He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had been touched quivered. It wriggled. In the middle, a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough for even Hagrid to... An archway onto a cobbled street that twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Where is it? There's the stack of cauldrons. All sizes. Copper, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible," said a sign hanging over them. I guess that's the sign that we can't read. "Yeah, you'll be needing one," said Hagrid, "but we gotta get your money first." I like this Gringotts, this look of Gringotts. That's pretty cool. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. You want 10 eyes. And even Hagrid acknowledges that people don't like spiders because they have 8 eyes. If Harry had 10 eyes, people would really, really dislike Harry. He turned his head in every direction, like an owl, as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce? They're mad!" A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying Ilop's Owl Emporium. A dark shop, because owls prefer the night. Owls are nocturnal, so Ilop's Owl Emporium has low lighting. Very kind, Ilop says. He's very considerate to the owls. Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown, and Snowy. Some of those are not native to the country. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with broomsticks in it. And yet I don't... Who are these boys? What class? Are these Hufflepuffs, Ravenclaws, Slytherins? Or are these second year Hogwarts, or obviously Hogwarts, second year Gryffindors? Who are they? Or are they only 10 years old? Don't know. Look, Harry heard one of them say. The new Nimbus 2000! Fastest ever! The best broom. Allusion to the broom that Harry is going to get. Yes. Because you gotta introduce so that when it does happen, when Harry does get the broom, we know that it is a good broom because it's introduced right here as the fastest broom ever. In the movies, the fastest mortal yet. In the book, fastest ever. New Nimbus 2000, fastest mortal yet. There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before, windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eels' eyes. Tottering piles of spell books, quills, and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. Gringotts, said Hagrid, interrupting Harry's vision quest. Different kind of vision quest. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was, "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly as they walked up the white stone steps toward him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. You know what they say about a man with long fingers and feet? He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time. Bronze doors, now silver doors. You don't want to go through the golden doors, with words engraved upon them. Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there. Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it, said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter. 100? Well, given JK's previous mentions of 100, or at least the previous mention of 100 or hundreds, I'm guessing there were half a dozen goblins. Maybe only 3 goblins. Not hundreds of goblins, but 3. Because, I mean, she exaggerated hundreds of miles. So, why not the hundreds of goblins? Maybe even the hundreds of letters that the hotel receptionist got, the hotel owner had. She didn't really have about 100 of them. She had maybe 50, 60. Don't know, because JK's bad with numbers. Terrible, terrible with numbers. Scribbling, the goblins are scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins and brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There's no ands. She never, when JK does lists, she doesn't say and for the last thing. I thought that was something you're supposed to do. I mean, I struggle with it because there is no and. It is more difficult to read without the and there. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. Just one counter, not like in the movie where it's a wrap-around counter. Just one counter. Sounds a bit more like Stormwind in World of Warcraft. The bank in Stormwind. You know the bank. Anybody who's played Alliance. Morning, said Hagrid to a free goblin. We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe. Harry Potter's safe. Not a vault, a safe. Makes you wonder. Do you have his key, sir? Got it here somewhere, said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. Moldy dog biscuits. That poor book. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on their right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. Glowing coals, not cold coals, but glowing coals. Is there a difference? I suppose because it is their rubies that are bright red, that she would say that the coals must be also bright red, that they're the same size as. But she's not saying that they're comparing the weight of rubies to the weight of glowing coals. But not the weight, just the size. I don't know. Got it, said Hagrid. Got it, said Hagrid, at last holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. That seems to be in order. And I've also got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore, said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The you-know-what, not in Vault you-know-which, but in Vault 713. Once again, the movies make things more mysterious than the books did. Or perhaps for the first time. That'll be book 6, where the other book spoiling things that the movie keeps secret. The goblin read the letter carefully. Very well, he said, handing it back to Hagrid. I will have someone take you down to both vaults. To the safe and the vault. Griphook! Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back inside his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook toward one of the doors leading off the hall. It's great to see Griphook here. It's the circular nature of J.K.'s story, having things at the beginning and things at the end mirrored back and forth, is so good. It's what makes this story so such a hit. It's such a huge success, is that kind of thing of having Griphook here, like having Hagrid riding on Sirius's bike. It's these things that she does to hint at things later, and the broom too. What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. Can't tell you that, said Hagrid mysteriously. Very secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. Earned me jobs worth to tell you that. Yeah. Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone, which marble is a stone. So, okay. Marble is a type of stone. What kind of stone is it now? They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were little rail tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks toward them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first, they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. It's magic. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once, he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. Why would the dragon be now bursting fire? Is somebody trying to break into a vault down there? Is somebody where they're not supposed to be? Don't know. Who might it be? Maybe trying to get into Vault 713. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and the floor. Here we go. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite? Stalagmite's got an M in it, and a G versus a C and a T. A GM instead of a CT, said Hagrid. And don't go asking me questions just now. I think I'm gonna be sick. Again, difference is a stalactite is hanging on tight to the ceiling. Stalagmite has a mighty base. Saw somebody else comment a different way of remembering it with the C for ceiling and G for ground. That's one way, I suppose. Stalagmite is the mighty base on the ground. Stalactite is the holding on tight to the ceiling. Good way to remember it. But now you know. He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. But I want to draw your attention to something. What is Harry's safe number? What is it? It's not here. We don't know. One of those things. Trivia question for later. It's just a trick question. Just remember, when they ask what Harry's vault number is, or safe number, it's a trick question because we don't know. It doesn't say. Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of bronze knuts. Mounds of gold, but columns of silver and heaps of bronze knuts. So there's mounds and heaps of the gold and the bronze coins. Why are just the silver coins stacked nicely in columns? All the rest are just piled. Just piles of coins. That's what mounds and heaps mean. Disorderly. But columns, that's organized. That's something Scrooge McDuck would be proud of. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's. It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained about how much Harry cost them to keep? Probably less than Dudley did. Far less than Dudley cost them. Because they spoiled Dudley. They didn't spoil Harry. Harry got bare minimum, if anything. No new clothes. Not much food, probably. He probably had sandwiches in his lunch worse than Ron's sandwich on the train. I would wager that the school lunches, the cold lunch that Petunia would have packed Harry would have been worse than what Molly gave Ron. by a long shot. So, just another point that we'll get to in the next chapter, where Harry understands Ron. Harry understands what it's actually like to be poor. But we'll get to that in the next chapter. Let's get back to Diagon Alley. Well, first, Gringotts. We're not... Oh, man, there's so much still. And all the time, there had been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. "The gold ones are galleons," he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, and 29 knuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right. They just pile some of the money into a bag. Right. That should be enough for a couple of terms. How much money did they take for a couple of terms? I mean, like, fall term, winter term, spring term, or years? First year, second year, third year, maybe. Did he just take out money for 2 years? All the money that he would need for 2 years, he just took out, leaving a crap ton more. Still. We'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now, please. And can we go more slowly? 1 speed only, said Griphook. Of course, because it's magic. There's no control to it. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners into the mantle, where it should be getting hotter and hotter. It actually gets hot when you go deep underground. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leaned over the side to try to see what was down at the bottom, at the dark bottom. But Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Ow. How did Hagrid's massive hands grab onto the scruff of Harry's neck? That's... no. Vault 713 had no keyhole, but was a long ways below Harry's vault, Harry's safe. "Stand back," said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. "If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked right through the door and trapped in there," said Griphook. "How often do you check to see if anyone's in there, inside?" Harry asked. "About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault, Harry was sure, and he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. Well, there is a fabulous jewel there. Just one. But it's wrapped, as we shall. But at first, he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Just one item for a whole vault. That actually completely 100% makes sense. For something like this especially. to have nothing else in that vault. Like, Dumbledore and Flamel are storing this there purposefully. Yeah. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask. Come on, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Harry, did they have to go back through the hall of the Gringotts Bank? Or were they just, the cart let them off outside? Because it was just a wild cart ride later and they were blinking into the sunlight. They didn't have to walk out from anywhere after the wild cart ride. They were just in the sunlight. Boop. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound. Not weight pound, but British coin pound. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he ever had in his whole life. More money than even Dudley had ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off for a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts. Yeah, I'm gonna go have a drink and leave you to do this thing because I don't need to be there for you getting robes fitted. You know. A wholly unnecessary place for Hagrid to be. Although, if Hagrid had have been there, Draco might have been a bit different. Who knows? Could have been worse. Could have been quieter, intimidated. Or Hagrid may have revealed to Draco right then and there who Harry was. That could have been interesting. Hagrid did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malcolm's shop alone, feeling nervous. The first time he's alone in the Wizarding World. Less than 12 hours after probably finding out that he is a wizard. I'm guessing it's before noon still. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed in all mauve. Hogwarts, dear. As if there was another option? What other option is there? What could he say? Are Beauxbaton students coming to Diagon Alley? Are Durmstrang or Ilvermorny coming to Diagon Alley? I'm guessing not. So, what other options are there? I would like to know. Got to the lot here, another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. I'm actually kind of surprised Draco didn't demand Madame Malkin's the best witch to do it. We must have the best of the best, so the best witch must do his robe pinning, correct? Right? Shouldn't it? Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts too? Yes, said Harry. Draco. The first words we get from Draco are, hello. Not in an Australian accent. My father's next door buying my books, and mother's up the street looking at wands. Why is his mom looking at wands for him? Because that's not going to get Draco a very good wand if his mom picks out the wand for him. The wand's not going to choose the mother of the wizard. It's going to choose the wizard. He had a bored, drawling voice. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. Except this boy was skinnier. A lot skinnier, but just as blonde. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, said Harry again. Harry said again, wondering on earth what Quidditch could be. First time he's ever heard of the word. I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked for my house, and I must say, I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Oh, Slytherin. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. Aye, what's wrong with Hufflepuff? Ain't nothing wrong with Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? No, I wouldn't. Sorting Hat almost put me in Hufflepuff. Even split, Hufflepuff and Gryffindor. I am a Gryffindpuff, said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. I say, look at that man, said the boy. I say, said the boy. Suddenly, nodding toward the front window, Hagrid was standing there, evidently done with his drink, and picked up an ice cream already, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice creams to show he couldn't come in, because Madame Malcolms does not want ice cream dripping on her carpets or on her clothing. Nope. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. He works at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy, I've heard of him, so it's not something that Draco doesn't know. He does know. He's a sort of servant, isn't he? He's the gamekeeper, said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. Yes, exactly. I heard he's sort of a savage. Lives in a hut on the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic, and ends up setting fire to his bed. Drunk Hagrid, your reputation precedes you. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the other, not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Unfortunately, nor has Harry. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get their letter. Imagine. Harry doesn't have to imagine. He knows exactly what that is like. He is essentially on the same page as the Muggleborns. He don't know a darn thing. Had no clue. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway? But before Harry could answer, Madame Malcolm said, That's you done, my dear. And Harry got finished before Draco did, and yet Draco started long before Harry did. got there. So this other second witch must be pretty inept, or Draco is just that big of a hassle. I'm gonna go with Draco is that big of a hassle. And was moving around and saying, "Watch where you're pinning that thing." Just like Joffrey, Game of Thrones. "Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream Hagrid had bought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. "What's up?" "What's up?" said Hagrid. "Nothing," Harry lied. Harry lies a lot. Whenever somebody asks, "Do you want to tell me something? Is there something you should tell me?" he always says no. He always lies. Yet another consistency throughout the books. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed color as you wrote. Very useful for math. But Harry doesn't take maths anymore. He's done with math for the rest of his schooling. Lucky kid. When they had left the shop, he said, "Hagrid, what's Quidditch?" "Blimey, Harry. I keep forgetting how little you know. Not knowing about Quidditch?" "Don't make me feel worse," said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy and Madame Malkin's. "Oh, that's Draco. That's a Malfoy. They're nothing but trouble, the Malfoys. Ugh. Don't want anything to do with them." And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. "You're not from a Muggle family." "Yeah. If he'd known who you were, he would have started trying to duel or something." "He's grown up knowing your name. If his parents are wizarding folk." "Yeah, his parents supported the guy that tried to kill him." They definitely know the Potters' names. "You saw what everyone was like in the Leaky Cauldron? You saw what everyone in the Leaky Cauldron was like when they saw ya? Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them, in a long line of muggles. Look at your mom. Look what she had for a sister." "So what is Quidditch?" "It's our sport. Wizard sport. It's like soccer." The American version, the US version of the book. Soccer. It's like soccer. These are Brits. They don't say soccer. Come on. It's like football in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules. And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses. There's 4, just like the balls. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but boy, I bet I'm in Hufflepuff," said Harry gloomily. "Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin," said Hagrid darkly. "There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin." "It's not Ron who says it, it's Hagrid." "Hagrid? You know who was one?" "Well, sorry, you know who was at Hogwarts?" "Years and years ago. Same time I was, in fact. Just a couple years older than me," said Hagrid. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones, bound in leather. Books the size of postage stamps and covers of silk, books full of peculiar symbols, and a few books with nothing in them at all. What's in the books with nothing? Why? And how does he know that there's nothing in them? Are they just covers? Covers with no pages? Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter-curses, bewitch your friends, and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more. So the latest revenges are jelly legs. So jelly legs is a new thing? Interesting. By Professor Vindictus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world, except in very special circumstances. And cursing Dudley sounds like a very special circumstance. Anytime you got a chance to curse Dudley, that's a very special circumstance and should be allowed by the Ministry of Magic. Hey, if he can blow up his aunt, why can't he blow up his stepbrother? I think he should be able to. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on your list. Why gold? But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell. A mixture of bad eggs and rotten cabbages. It smells worse than Mrs. Fig's place. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. Hey, she used and. He put and in a list of things. Amazing! See, she does know how to use the word and it's so much easier to read. Well, Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry. Harry himself examined silver unicorn hairs at 21 galleons each and minuscule glittering black beetle eyes, 5 knuts a scoop. Much cheaper. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't gotten you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll get your animal. Harry's first real birthday present. Not a toad. Toads went out of fashion years ago. You'd be laughed at. Like Neville's gonna get laughed at. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. But I'll get your owl. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything. 20 minutes later, they left Aelop's Owl Emporium, the dark place. It's dark for the owls. Which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Rustling eyes? Harry now carried a large cage that held a beautiful, snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. Yes, Harry picked out Hedwig, not Hagrid. It was not a surprise for Harry after Harry got his wand. No, Harry picked out Hedwig. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Don't expect you had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. Nope, none. None whatsoever. Except maybe an old sock and a coat hanger. Maybe a rubber band or something. Nothing of any... Not like Dudley ever got.
Just Ollivanders left now. Only place to for wands, Ollivanders. And you gotta have the best one.
If you watch the movie, as they're approaching Gringotts, it actually shows a couple other wand shops. There are a few wand shops in Diagon Alley in the movies. Rather interesting. Magic wand. This was what Harry had been really looking forward to. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Narrow? How could it be narrow for a wand shop that has tons of wands? It does not need a narrow shop. Hopefully it's bigger on the inside. Peeling gold letters over the door read, Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. That is a very, very long time ago. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion in the dusty window. I wonder what that wand's core is. What it is. Tell me about that wand, JK. I'm curious. I would like to know. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single spindly chair that Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely as though he had entered a very strict library, yet there were no books. He swallowed a lot of new questions that had just occurred to him and looked instead at the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly right up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. All them wands. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise and he got quickly off the spindly chair. An old man was standing before them, his wide, pale eyes shining like moons through the gloom of the shop. Hello? Hello, said Harry awkwardly. Ah, yes, said the man. Yes, yes. I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10 1/4 inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work. I was devastated to hear that she was killed. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand. 11 inches, pliable. A little more powerful and excellent for transfiguration. Like becoming animagus. Animagi. Well, I say your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course. Mr. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where... Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long, white finger. Probably the first person who has ever touched his scar. I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it, he said softly. Wonder if gun sellers are that sorry when the guns they sell are used to murder people. 13 1/2 inches. You! Powerful wand. Very powerful. And in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do, I'd have broken it in half. And then there would be the benefit of the twin calls, and you would probably die the next time you saw him, Harry.
So it's a good thing I didn't destroy that wand, and a good thing I gave that wand to Voldemort, to Tom Riddle. Little Thomas. Little Tommy. Tommy boy.
He shook his head, and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Hagrid.
Rubius! Rubius Hagrid, how nice to see you again. Oak, 16 inches. Rather bendy, wasn't it? It was, sir.
Yes, said Hagrid.
Good wand, that one. But I suppose they snapped it in half when you got expelled,
said Mr. Ollivander, suddenly stern.
Yes, they did, yes,
said Hagrid, shuffling his feet.
I've still got the pieces, though,
he added brightly. But you don't use them, said Mr. Ollivander sharply.
Oh, no, sir,
said Hagrid quickly. Lying, lied Hagrid quickly. It's a practiced lie. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Mr. Ollivander, giving Hagrid a piercing look, knowing that Hagrid just lied.
Well now, Mr. Potter, let me see.
He pulled a long tape measure with silver markings out of his pocket.
Which is your wand arm?
Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry.
Hold out your arm, that's it.
He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he measured, he said,
Every Ollivander wand has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and the heartstrings of dragons. No two Ollivander wands are the same, just as no two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same.
There are multiple phoenixes. There are many phoenixes in the world, apparently.
And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand.
Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing this on its own. Mr. Ollivander was flittering around the shelves, taking down boxes.
That will do,
he said, and the tape measure crumpled into a heap on the floor.
Right then, Mr. Potter. Try this one, beechwood and dragon heartstring. 9 inches, nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave.
Harry took the wand and, feeling foolish, waved it around a bit, but
Mr. Ollivander snatched it out of his hand almost at once. Maple and phoenix feather, 7 inches. Quite whippy.
A different phoenix, so some other phoenix. Harry tried, but he had hardly raised the wand when it too was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander.
No. Here, ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Go on, try it out.
Harry tried and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair. I imagine for nearly all students, it could take quite a while to find the right wand. But the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become.
Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder now. Yes, why not? Unusual combination. Holly and phoenix feather.
11 inches.
Nice and supple.
Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand above his head, brought it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well. How curious!
How very curious. He put Harry's wand back into its box and wrapped it in brown paper. Because you can't use your wand yet. Not till you get to school, Harry. Keep it closed up. Keep it boxed. Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Still muttering.
Curious. Curious.
Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare.
I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix, whose tail feather is in your wand, gave another feather. Just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand, when its brother, why its brother gave you that scar.
Harry swallowed.
Yes, 13.5 inches. You. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chooses the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible! Yes, but great.
Just like someone else who did great things. Harry shivered. Yeah. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bowed them from his shop. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down Diagon Alley, back through the wall, back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. Nobody talking to him in the leaky cauldron this time. He didn't even notice how much people were gawking at them on the underground, laden as they were with all their funny-shaped packages, with the snowy owl asleep in its cage on Harry's lap. Oh, she forgot the and. Up another escalator, out into Paddington Station. Harry only realized where they were when Hagrid tapped him on the shoulder.
Got time for a bite to eat before your train leaves,
he said. He bought Harry a hamburger. Harry and Hagrid had a hamburger, and they sat down on plastic seats to eat them. Did the seats break? Why is it important that the seats are plastic? Harry kept looking around. Everything looked so strange somehow.
You all right, Harry? You're very quiet,
said Hagrid. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He just had the best birthday of his life. The pretty much only birthday he's ever gotten to celebrate. He chewed his hamburger, trying to find the words. Everyone thinks I'm special, he said at last. All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander. But I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when the night my parents died. Hagrid leaned across the table. Behind the wild beard and eyebrows, he wore a very kind smile.
Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself. I know it's hard. You've been singled out, and that's always hard. But you'll have a great time at Hogwarts. I did. Still do, as a matter of fact.
Hagrid helped Harry onto the train that would take him back to the Dursleys. Because yes, Harry had to go back to the Dursleys after Diagon Alley. Not just straight from Diagon Alley to the train. To... King's Cross.
not just straight from Diagon Alley to King's Cross Station. He had to go back home to the Dursleys. Assuming the Dursleys managed to get back from the rock, the hut on the rock at the sea, Harry could come back to an empty house, just full of letters. And Hagrid then handed him an envelope. "Your ticket for Hogwarts," he said. "1st of September, a month away, because this is the 1st of August. King's Cross, it's all on your ticket. Any problems with the Dursley, and send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry."
The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat and pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid had gone. And that is the end, finally. Technical difficulties today made this take the entire day to record. But it is what it is. Got it done. And Diagon Alley, Draco, Gringotts, Mr. Ollivander. The Leaky Cauldron, and Doris Crawford, and Daedalus Diggle, the great Daedalus Diggle, one of my favorite characters. Absolutely. And again, we don't get Harry's safe number. What is it? We shall never know. And because we shall never know, I'm going to end this video. So hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already. Put down some comments. Let's discuss this video in the comments. And join my Discord. I'll also put a link to the Discord down in the description down below. It's set up to discuss all Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, Star Trek, Star Wars, a whole bunch of other things. Come discuss nerddom with me. It's a good time. So, yeah. Join my Discord, support me on Patreon, and subscribe, like button, comments, all those fun things. And enjoy the next chapter.